it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. You hear that all the time. And I want to take it one step further and say, it's not the journey, it's the people that we met along the way. In my time of playing War Thunder, and you're watching some of the highlights from the kill compilations that I used to upload, because I wanted to reminiscence. This is around the time period when I was actually recording these that I met a fella called Remy. Most of you might know him by his Twitch name, I'm the First Avenger. I think he's the longest lasting relationship that I have with anyone from this game that stems outside of that world. The fact that I met somebody foreign, somebody from Germany who has, seemingly nothing mutual with me other than he likes playing jets in that time. And it turns out that his journey too, quite an extraordinary one, took him to the army, took him to triathlon, and consequently he has a mutual interest in cycling. And so in October of 2021 he actually travelled from Germany to Croatia. We have a family home there on an island, and we did a couple of rides. And it was the very first day. We come back from the bike ride. I cooked some pasta. I put all the food on the table. We're just stuffing ourselves with pasta and bread and salad. And I told him, hey, put some music on. And he takes out his phone. He connects to my Bluetooth speaker. He opens up Spotify, and he plays the official theOrangeDoom playlist, which for whatever reason I'd completely forgotten about. Because this was no ordinary playlist. This playlist was put together meticulously by a guy named Arnes. And he did this by manually adding each and every single song that I had sent to him in a MP3 format. I mean, a humongous amount of work, but what is now a playlist available for everyone to listen to outside of the streams. And it was in that moment that I was filled with an immense amount of gratitude, because without people like Arnes and Remy and so many others, that there would have never been this journey, there would have never been this event that took part. And without the influence of all these people, I would have probably never agreed to go back here and sit and talk again. But frankly, if there's one thing I absolutely adore, it's telling a good story. It seems like there's something in my life that happens every 10 years that has something to do with a bike. In 2002, I rode it for the very first time and discovered this absolute freedom of what it meant to be operating this machine. 10 years later, I ended up breaking my collarbone in that infamous crash that I described in the last video. And 10 years after that, here we are, sitting in the saddle again, observing the world through the eyes of freedom. And it's these very same eyes that look back at those 7 years of video games and addictions and just sadness and depression and poor social skills and everything that comes with it. And these eyes also see the future, and they see the potential, and I would be an absolute fool not to at least attempt to create some sort of content to share experience. And whilst I know that this audience, as much as any other, doesn't really care about cycling, what people do like is a good story. And what I like is I like telling good stories. So I'd be an absolute fool if I didn't give it another try. After the last video was so very well received, so, heartwarming, I would be a fool not to. So here we go, dwelling into the Twilight Zone once more, this time through even clearer eyes, to explain why the gamer is far from dead, why the gamer is the future, and why games are the past. Confusing, perhaps. Eye-opening? Most definitely. Let's jump into it. There's a sense of unfathomable amount of freedom when riding a bike. And for the longest time I tried to find something that was similar to it, and then I realised that I had been doing it for the past 7 years, and that was gaming. Gaming is an escape route. It's a way for us to get out of the real world and into a imaginary world, into a role-playing environment or a war zone or whatever it is that creates this sort of comfortable bubble, right? It's like a fog of war which we enjoy engulfing ourselves into, because for the time being it takes away the pain that we're experiencing in life. Now, it should come as no surprise that humans deal with their hardships in many different ways, whether it's hobbies, whether it's video games, whether it's drugs. One of those is working. In fact, having a job and putting all of that energy that maybe you might sense it as negative energy, this, some people might describe it as anxiety, depression, angst. This is energy, and you can source that energy into something more productive. For me, in my personal growth, a lot of it happened over the past year and a half as I started working in the kitchen. And I realized that this environment in which cooks and chefs work, this heated, time to perfection, stressful, but also it's a happy place, it's a comfort place. A lot of the time, you're working with food, you're working with one of the most basic things on planet Earth, something that everybody needs, nutrition. And I realized that these men and women who work in this industry, they're absolute, they're a godsend. Without them, really, this deserves a video in its own. The way that the kitchen operates, the hardships in and with itself, the adversities. But in a weird way, what it reminded me of was that of a gamer. The sort of consistency that you have to hit, the ability to work long hours, the ability to just continue at the same thing over and over and over again and just strive for absolute perfection. And so funnily, there are similarities across all different jobs and branches. And in this case, I can say that a gamer is not a whole lot different from a cook. But this brings me to a very vulnerable question. That is the question of what is the position of a gamer in society. Because the more I started to venture away from the computer, the more I started to go into the real world, the more I was socializing, the more people I talked to, the more dating that I went into, the more I realized that the view of people, the outside world, so to speak, on the gamer was a very, very bad one. They didn't look at gamers as sort of these, self-accomplished and, you can be a live streamer and you can make money and you can entertain people, and they don't look at it that way. What the outside world sees is people who are addicted to computers, people who have bad social skills, people who don't have real-life applicable knowledges, people who maybe don't have degrees, they don't have experience, they have no, work. It's a bad view. It's a bad rap for the gamer, and I don't like it because I've met people, because I've seen people, because I've experienced it firsthand, and I know that the gamer is much more than that. When I look at a live stream, one of those that I used to run over the years, I realized that it's combining multiple different jobs. You're a radio host, you're a speedrunner, you're an entertainer, you're a stand-up comedian, you're doing so many things at the same time with a huge amount of viewers. As a content creator, you're constantly put in front of this, all your skills are on the line, your face is there for the world to see, your voice is there for the world to hear, and yet somehow throughout all this entire package that you're trying to create and sell and give to people is not enough for some people to govern respect. And it's got to change. Now, I spent a lot of time thinking how I could segue my way into the next chapter, what kind of association I could give you, what sort of logical explanation to talk about these next two topics in such close relation and try to correlate what they mean and why the gamer ties into that I'm not actually going to bother at all. We're going to talk about Tinder and we're going to talk about chess. Because these are two things that have sprung into my life very, very quickly over the course of the last 2 years, and I absolutely loved it. And it was a revelation of its own kind. Now, I've played chess multiple times in my life, whether it was with my granddad, my dad, my friends. I always had the same experience. I hated it. Why did I hate it? Because I sucked at it. Because chess is a game of ego. And in this, game of ego, especially for someone like me who has a lot of it hits freaking hard. When you're winning, you feel like you're on top of the world. When you're losing, you don't want to play no more. As soon as you make that first blunder and you lose that piece, you just want to smash the board and be done with it. Now, the reason why Tinder sucks, unlike chess, is, well, there's multiple reasons. Again, this could be a video of its own kind, or a series, or a freaking, documentary. There's science to it, for sure. Really, there's this funny thing you'll find where it says there's only 2 rules to being successful on Tinder. Number 1, to be attractive. Number 2, don't be unattractive. And there's some truth to that, but really what it is, it's like playing chess. I mean, dating in general is like playing chess. You have to reach a point where you feel comfortable losing, where you feel comfortable with rejection. This is the correlation that I want to make. For me, my problem with life, always, as a child, I always had struggles with women, was because I would crush into a girl, and I'd be simping over her, never to get anywhere. And as soon as she would, sort of turn me down, obviously there goes the ego. I don't want to play this game anymore. Dating sucks, life sucks, and you're stuck in that little loop. And chess brought me to this point where, I'm at a friend's place, I'm playing chess with him, and this is the guy who played some, 5,000-10,000 matches. I mean, this is like if somebody started playing War Thunder yesterday and he was to duel me. Not fair, right? I got my ass handed to me. But in the process of that game, I saw a beauty. I saw a beauty of how he was able to just dismantle me. And shocking as it was to me, I felt like some of that ego was evaporating. And I was starting to enjoy it more and more and more. I started to enjoy losing. And then I go out and I start, dating in this same principle. And I realize that I'm just enjoying it way more. And if there's one thing that's certain in life, is that there is this effect of a snowball. And what starts to happen is that, when things start going our way, when we are positive, when we're successful, everything else seems to work out as well. Seemingly, we're driving in a car and all the lights are green, and, people are smiling and saying hello, and there's this energy around. And the more that I started to apply these principles, the more I noticed that it wasn't just me that was happy and more gleaming, but the world around me too. And when I was in the process of drafting an idea for this video, call it maybe a bit of a script, I couldn't ignore the fact that it had everything to do with the word gamer. And it reminded me back of I think it was 4 years ago now, that I was a student at the university studying English. And at that point, I'd learned something about me that was quite important for the years to come, is that I'm very, very bad at the theory of stuff. I was always a hands-on person. I like, doing things and trying them out, and maybe I'm an empirical person, right? But the understanding was that I still like, every once in a while, to sort of dwell on things, maybe a little bit too much. I like to get a little bit dug up and stuff, have I don't know if it's an OCD or just perfectionism or whatever it is, but, I get addicted quite quickly. So when I get into something, I start looking at it from all different angles and maybe overthinking it. But the word gamer sort of sprung out in my mind, right? Because if you think about the word gamer, there's a lot more to do with it than just somebody who, sits in his basement playing video games all day. A gamer can also be interpreted as a person who's extremely good with women, right? And here's this, it's almost a paradox, because, when you think of an average gamer, you'd probably think of somebody who's anything but good with women. And I'm not going to lie to you, having crawled out of my little, gaming headspace, I can't deny that. I think it's actually factually quite true. Gamers are bad with women. But I think most men are bad with women. I think that it's just a current societal problem because of, it depends on how you were brought up. It depends on it's a million different factors. And I didn't come here to talk about women, believe it or not. What I do want to talk about is that usually when you do something in life and you commit to it and then you cease to do that, it remains a big part of you. For me, I quit War Thunder now, I don't know, I think it's like 2 years ago. Obviously still, occasionally we'll log in or I'll play a match on stream or whatever. But what War Thunder left with me is this absolutely weird fanaticism about anything World War II related. I won't forget, in November I was in Estonia to do this competition, and we were to have the gala dinner, so that the announcement of the winners, in a hangar
with like ships and submarines, and as we're walking on these beautiful scaffoldings, and I'm looking down at this massive submarine, and all the lights and the tables are below, and just the atmosphere, and people chatting, I notice in the corner of my eye there's something that I recognize, and in the back of this giant hangar was a ZSU 57. And I couldn't not go there and touch it, because it was like, oh my god, this is, wow, I love this thing. And it makes me happy. To this day, it makes me happy. I have, forever, I've had this fanaticism about vehicles, and when I go and I see a train ride by, I get excited by it. I'll still count the amount of, train carts it has. And I love seeing planes. I love being... When I flew to Estonia, and we obviously stopped. We had to stop somewhere. It was a transfer flight, and we're landing in Frankfurt. And I will never forget this, because in Slovenia we have one airport. It's a tiny airport. It has one airstrip, and here we are landing in Frankfurt. I'm looking out the window, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh well, that's not that big." And then the airport actually opens up, because you realise that there's just hundreds of runways and thousands of planes, and I was blown away. I'm like, I can just see it's just jumbo jet next to jumbo jet next to jumbo jet, and I was so ecstatic about it. And I get the same kind of excitement from telling stories. I guess the story I wanted to tell here, and the lesson I want you to take from this video, is that the gamer can be much more, but he has to make a sacrifice. I think that all of you who are right now sitting in front of the screen and you're playing video games, you're going to have to leave that behind at some point in life. If you want to be successful, if you really want to be happy, you're going to have to depart to a certain extent from your computer, to look outside, to look at the stars, to just disconnect and reconnect with nature. It's healthy, it's good, and I can guarantee it will bring you happiness. And when the time comes for you to go on your journey, when it's time for you to face the world, to face your fears, I beg you to take the gamer with you. Put him in your bag and carry him around, because he's skilled, he's knowledgeable, he's witty, and he's one mean-ass motherfucker.